A routine celestial observation uncovers a phenomenon that challenges our fundamental understanding of the universe, forcing us to question the very nature of intelligence and existence, while official bodies attempt to silence the truth. The most important discovery in human history might be unfolding right now in the cold, silent depths of space. And the official reaction and deafening silence. This silence, perhaps more than any revelation, should truly concern us. Forget for a moment the initial excitement surrounding Object 3I divided by Atlas. Its strange rotation, its unusual brightness. That it turns out was merely a warm-up act, a prelude. The real story, the one you haven't been told, is far more compelling. The entire scientific community was initially baffled by 3I divided by Atlas. Yet they were looking in the wrong place. The truth is out there, something else is moving alongside it. Something following the exact same trajectory. Let's be unequivocally clear, this is not space debris. It's not a telescope glitch. And it's certainly not a random reflection. Mathematics in this realm simply does not lie. When your initial, most straightforward hypothesis crumbles into dust, that's when the real investigation truly begins. It all started with data from the Pan-STARRS telescope. Thankfully, this data is publicly accessible, and there it was, a second point. Unmistakable. Visible in the images, maintaining a strictly fixed distance from the primary object. It was stable. This wasn't noise. This wasn't interference. This was a clear, unambiguous signal. In the past, one might have dismissed this as an error. But then multiple independent teams conducted their own rigorous analyses. They employed sophisticated methods of subtracting light flux and meticulously reconstructed the trajectories. The results were undeniable. This secondary object moved at the exact same speed, and most incredibly, it precisely replicated the complex accelerations of 3I divided by Atlas. The probability of such a coincidence occurring naturally is, quite frankly, statistically zero. To ignore this further would be fundamentally unscientific, but that's not all. Soon after, independent confirmation arrived from amateur astronomers who employed precision photometry, a serious level of analysis. Their data showed the exact same thing, the secondary object maintaining its constant distance, as if bound by an invisible chain. So what did official institutions do when this became unequivocally clear? The game of silence began. NASA quietly updated its technical notes, removing sections that mentioned related anomalies. The European Space Agency replaced concrete details with ambiguous observational artifacts. Two of the world's largest space agencies simultaneously scrubbing their reports, and not a single comment on the matter. This is not coincidence. This is coordinated information control. Experts like Aevealed are absolutely correct when they state that such behavior is unique. Interstellar objects typically arrive alone. Over millions of years of cosmic travel, gravitational forces would tear apart any systems not possessing an unimaginable resilience. Even if a pair somehow survived, they certainly wouldn't move with such ideal synchronous precision. This is not celestial mechanics as we understand it. This is formation flying. There is a fundamental difference between a naturally occurring binary system and a deliberately constructed pair. What we are observing simply does not fit any known model. But here's what truly shatters expectations. The light reflected by the second object has a completely different spectrum. 3I divided by Atlas exhibits ice dust, typical for a comet. But its companion, its thermal signature is different. It's linear, almost artificial, as if it possesses its own internal power source. No emissions, no tail, no scattering of matter, just a constant ordered glow. It trails the main body like a sentient shadow. Perfect synchronization, a fixed distance, an anomalous thermal signature. This forces us to ask the ultimate question. Are we witnessing for the first time in history the coordinated movement of an interstellar formation? So why did NASA and ESA simply fail to mention they were monitoring a second object? What exactly were they editing out of reports, and why? The moment you accept that 3I divided by Atlas is not alone, the entire paradigm shifts. This is no longer merely an interstellar wanderer. This is a system. From the very beginning, we knew this was no ordinary phenomenon. But the presence of a silent, perfectly coordinated companion elevates everything to an entirely new level. And as it turns out, that's just the tip of the iceberg. The next stage of analysis, daringly published by only the boldest researchers, reveals something even more unsettling. The second object isn't just following the first, it's reacting to it. And we have the images to prove it. The presence of a second object near 3i divided by Atlas is no longer a mere astronomical curiosity. It has become the central element of the enigma. When independent laboratories unburdened by obligations to major agencies began scrutinizing light curves recorded by telescopes worldwide, a truly disturbing correlation emerged. The secondary object synchronizes and instantly reacts to the slightest changes in acceleration detected in its interstellar neighbor. Astronomers from Warsaw University, world-renowned for their expertise in microlensing and variable objects, observed something that further amplified the significance of this discovery. Every time 3i divided by Atlas minimally reduced its speed, the very strange behavior that initially puzzled researchers, the secondary luminous point exhibited a proportional drop in its luminosity. It looked as if it was instantaneously correcting its own position, or perhaps its orientation in space, in response to the main body's maneuver. To better illustrate natural binaries like binary asteroids orbit a common center of mass. Their mutual influence causes them to exhibit predictable cyclical changes in brightness. But the pattern we see here offers no indication of any orbit. Instead, it suggests purposeful tracking, parallel and meaningful movement maintained at a constant distance, all while executing adjustments that resemble controlled guided behavior, rather than spontaneous and chaotic motion. The most crucial aspect of this entire discovery is that the general public only gained access to this data because it was published by researchers independent of funding from major space agencies. In other words, they didn't have to wait for anyone's permission to release their groundbreaking findings. For decades, we grew up with the notion that the vast expanse of the cosmos is governed exclusively by chaotic, blind, and impartial physical processes. But when an interstellar object enters our solar system, accompanied by another moving in perfect synchronicity, the accustomed sense of the universe's unpredictability gives way to something far more precise, almost calculated. This fundamentally overturns our collective perception of reality. This powerful psychological impact is now attracting the intense scrutiny of sociologists and human behavior specialists. The speed at which information about 3i divided by Atlas spreads across social networks reveals a well-known pattern. The more inexplicable a phenomenon, the stronger humanity's immediate need to find some rational basis for it. The accompanying object, a cosmic shadow, a detached fragment, an alien ship, a reconnaissance probe. Each social group begins to construct its own unique narrative, attempting to restore a lost sense of control in the face of the utterly unknown. This reflex is far from accidental. It is deeply ingrained in human nature. Within the scientific community itself, opinions are sharply divided. Aevealed maintains that the best approach in such a situation is to embrace the boldest hypothesis that does not contradict the available data. And in this specific case, the boldest hypothesis is strikingly simple. The accompanying object behaves as if it possesses situational awareness. Loeb does not explicitly claim the object is artificial, but he adamantly stresses that the observed synchronized movements cannot be explained by any known natural forces. Other researchers holding more conservative views prefer extreme caution, arguing that a definitive answer will only come after more extensive and detailed measurements. But even the most hardened skeptics and conservatives are forced to admit that the observed synchronicity demands an immediate and exhaustive explanation. Meanwhile, one critically important technical detail has gone practically unnoticed by the wider public. A research group from Calgary specializing in the analysis of thermal spectra of cosmic objects discovered unusual peaks of radiation emanating from the secondary object. This pattern closely resembles pulsed emissions, which are not regular like artificial radio signals, yet they don't appear entirely random either. The oscillations of these peaks are low constant and repeat at specific time intervals. This alone is sufficient to confidently point to the presence of some diffuse energy source within the object, which is entirely inconsistent with the behavior of inactive rocky fragments or icy comets. All this data taken together doesn't just shake a single astronomical theory. It jeopardizes an entire line of scientific reasoning about interstellar objects, the very line constructed after the passage of the famous Oumuamua through our system. Back then, experts resorted to increasingly improbable and strained explanations simply to avoid the assumption of deliberate intelligent behavior by that object. Now with 3, I divided by Atlas, demonstrating not only inexplicable acceleration, but also the presence of a potentially intelligent companion. The traditional and convenient narrative of a natural phenomenon is rapidly losing its foothold. And for those of you who have followed this investigation so far, if you've made it to this very point, it's only because you fully grasp the immense importance of what we're discussing. And you know perfectly well that such information rarely reaches the general public in such an unfiltered form, so savor the moment. And please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment right now to stay abreast of the latest developments. Because all of this is unfolding in real time right before our eyes. And frankly, given the rapid pace of events, you absolutely won't want to rely solely on meager official statements to find out what happens next. The data and evidence for the existence of this accompanying object were not obtained from a single source, but through numerous different instruments, various methods, and independent groups of scientists. And when an unusual phenomenon successfully resists numerous attempts to deny its existence, it ceases to be merely an exception to the rule and begins to demand a real, comprehensive explanation. In other words, we are not dealing here with some instrumental illusion or error, but with a stable and confirmed regularity. And this regularity has just become even more complex and perplexing. In a preliminary analytical report, published almost without fanfare by a Japanese research group, the most irrefutable evidence to date emerged. They recorded a sudden change in the axial tilt of 3. I divided by Atlas, an alteration confirmed by 3 different observatories. And then a short time later, a millimeter-level displacement of the accompanying object occurred in the exact same direction. It is at this point that our investigation ceases to be merely intriguing and begins to become truly disturbing. Because the question is no longer, does a companion exist? It sounds different. Why does it react so precisely to the movement of 3? I divided by Atlas. The answer to this paramount question will be explored in the concluding part of our analysis. Some independent researchers have already put forward hypotheses that go far, far beyond what is dared to be written in official papers. Most of these hypotheses have been consciously ignored, swept under the rug, or labeled as purely speculative. But there are records of studies and reflections that manage to slip past this informational filter. And finally, I will show you where you can find this unique material. If you are truly ready to delve deeper as we conduct a comprehensive analysis of all the data that has emerged in recent weeks, the simultaneous changes in brightness, the synchronized millimeter-level displacement, the unusual thermal reactions, and the subtly edited updates from official bodies, it becomes absolutely clear that the problem is no longer merely astronomical. We are no longer just discussing an interstellar object with some atypical behavior. We are confronting a profound shift in our very understanding of the universe. And this shift has consequences that extend far beyond pure science. Simply ignoring this phenomenon will not make it disappear. On the contrary, refusing to try and understand the pattern emerging before our eyes will only fertilize the ground for confusion and all manner of manipulation around it. Human history has repeatedly shown that every time we try to oversimplify a complex phenomenon, the price for that ignorance is paid later in science, in philosophy, in culture, and even in our fundamental perception of ourselves as a biological species. And now as this enigmatic companion with bewildering, almost inconceivable precision reproduces the slightest changes in the movement of 3I divided by Atlas, the psychological and scientific impact is already evident. Even if it is not yet publicly acknowledged, what is happening forces us to re-examine the very question we have always diligently avoided. How do we as a civilization react to something that clearly and meaningfully responds to external stimuli, yet which we cannot classify within our traditional categories, life machine or natural phenomenon? The recorded synchronicity does not require any fanciful or fantastic interpretations. But at the same time, it does not allow for primitive, simplistic answers. It opens before us an extremely dangerous intellectual domain, a domain where modern science still doesn't know if it's dealing with an extremely rare but still natural system, or with something deliberate, designed, purposeful. And the most disturbing thing about all of this is the slow realization that the general public is receiving only meager fragments of this vital discussion. Redacted sections from reports, altered technical notes, substituted phrasing. The official version of events is deliberately limited to the necessary minimum of information that allows for avoiding mass panic and rampant speculation. But there is one single fact that cannot be erased or hidden. The second object reacts to the movement of the first. This alone completely destroys any convenient and comforting interpretation. Imagine for a moment the colossal significance this holds for all of traditional physics. If two interstellar bodies move in perfect synchronicity without a visible orbit, without obvious gravitational constraints, and without any material scattering, then we are dealing with a type of organization of matter that absolutely does not fit into our known natural laws. And if there is organization, then there is information. If there is information, then between these two bodies there is also some form of connection. And if there is a connection, then it is vitally important that we completely reconsider the very boundaries of what we are accustomed to calling intelligence, whether human or otherwise. It is this that most frightens the experts. Not the mere possibility of extraterrestrial technologies, and not the hypothesis of the object's artificial origin, but the shock of realizing that perhaps we are right now observing a process that our scientific language is still unable to adequately describe. Something that behaves as if it has a definite purpose yet does not respond to our parameters defining that purpose. Something that adapts and adjusts to changing circumstances but which we cannot confidently call either life a machine or an isolated physical phenomenon. And it is on this shaky threshold between what we already understand and that which we cannot even yet name that the deepest and most fundamental aspect of this entire event lies. This discovery directly touches upon those existential questions we always avoid, because they undermine our fragile sense of control over reality. Does the universe operate exclusively through blind physical forces, or do other layers exist within it? Consciousness, intention, or structures that we have yet to identify? Such reflections do not arise in a vacuum. They are born precisely when the obtained data begins to seriously question the invisible boundary that separates what we call inanimate matter and what we call consciousness. That's why, if you've read this investigation up to this point, you simply must familiarize yourself with the electronic book entitled The Mind of the Creator. Does the universe possess consciousness? This isn't a way to escape to simple and comforting answers, but an inevitable and logical continuation of what we have discussed in such detail here. This book explores precisely the fundamental doubt that runs like a red thread through the entire phenomenon of 3I divided by Atlas and its enigmatic companion. Is there some design in the structure of our cosmos? Is there a hidden logic that organizes events that at first glance appear entirely random? If you wish to delve deeper into this complex question and understand how leading figures in modern science, philosophy, and spirituality approach this problem, then the link is in the pinned comment, or you can access it via the QR code on the screen. This is for those who are categorically unsatisfied with superficial and primitive explanations. And you, through your patience, have already clearly proven that you are not such a person. But before we conclude this video, there is one more final detail that completely changed the entire course of further analysis and which must be examined in the most meticulous way. The Japanese research group, the same one that recorded the simultaneous movement of the two objects, published their second document, which is still awaiting official peer review. It apparently contains information that no official body has yet commented on. It turns out that after the correction of 3I divided by Atlas's axial tilt, the accompanying object remained absolutely motionless for exactly 14 seconds, and then it corrected its own position in just 2 seconds. This was a micropulse, followed by others absolutely identical in their period intensity and direction. A natural cosmic body does not behave that way. An ordinary fragment is incapable of such a maneuver. And no, not even the most incredible repeating coincidence can withstand scrutiny with such mathematical precision. It is here that the scientific narrative and our collective perception of reality collide head-on. Because now, it is absolutely impossible to avoid the main question. What exactly is 3I divided by Atlas tracking? And why does its companion react as if it precisely knows it is being observed? If you want this crucial discussion to reach the widest possible audience and for more people to understand what is truly hidden behind the official releases, please like, subscribe to the channel, and be sure to share your opinion in the comments. Your active participation is exactly what sustains this independent investigation and prevents it from disappearing without a trace into oblivion, where many other inconvenient truths are already buried. The enigma of 3I divided by Atlas and its companion transcending astrophysics inevitably invades the realms of philosophy and even theology, touching upon humanity's most ancient questions about its place in the universe. For millennia, the world's religions have offered their answers to the question of intelligent design in the cosmos. The phenomenon of 3I divided by Atlas, therefore, becomes not just an astronomical mystery but a kind of mirror in which humanity sees the reflection of its deepest fears, hopes, and beliefs, forcing us again and again to ask ourselves the eternal questions about the nature of being and consciousness.